Series 4, Episode 4. 2 important things to note.
Yeah.
First thing, we have a name change. We're just straight Jen now.
Yeah.
Like
Great.
Pele, like Madonna, we're just Jen. And you're rocking a nice new Barnet today.
Barnet's Dawn going to a wedding this weekend. Very excited about going home. I'll get some family time, some friends time. And it's the second last person in the group to get married. So yeah, we all gather in these random periods of time, year, 2 years apart, and then go to a wedding. So yeah, some have children, houses, some live in different countries. So yeah, got to still kind of try and look nice.
It's strong, it's good.
Oh, thanks, Nick. And the name change is that I am trying to go to my married name. My wife isn't banging on the door to do it, but I should do it. And I had Cody, and then I said, oh, you've got Nick, I should just do Jen. So yeah, not in some sort of iconic Prince label. I'm just going to dish the surname, lads. Yeah, that level.
Next week, you're just going to be like a $sign.
Yeah. So representative. Oh yeah. So
yeah. Cool. How's your week been?
It's been really good. This morning I spent some time thinking about a session that we hosted last night. Myself and Amy did the chapters of the book and the authors, etc. once a month. And Colm Cronin came on and he was talking about care. Now, I've listened to Colm a really long time in different spaces talking about it and growing within that, sharing the research, but how his interest has kind of changed and the angle and maybe some barriers he's faced in trying to integrate it into different environments. And I shared last night on Twitter, which will be on Coach Convo because I'll retweet it today, some of the questions that are kind of still on his mind. And one of the ones was, do our systems and resources enable the capacity to care? And that's what I spent my morning thinking about. Do our systems and resources enable the capacity to care? And there was loads of great questions and people involved last night. And I just love those spaces where I can just be present as opposed to worry about facilitating too much. He did a great job. But systems, and when we say systems are people in our world anyway, they're built up of people, and the resources, do they enable us? And I mean, we spoke about care before, and in all that we speak about, there's care that underpins it. Not to be too flippant about it, but we do. So I was thinking about today. It's not how my week has been, it's just probably how my week has culminated as I get ready today to kind of finish off the day and go into a long weekend at home in Ireland.
Yeah, but I think sometimes, clearly, whether we get to the topic we're going to talk about, who knows?
Yeah, I've done that, haven't I now? I've dragged us off.
That's what we do. I sometimes wonder why that has sparked a level of curiosity. So what is it about the care bit that you've gone, that's really important to me, or that has resonated with me, or that's landed in some kind of way that then has sparked you to go, oh, I'm going to think about that some more, and give some of your resources, your thinking time, etc., your space towards it.
Yeah, I think it's at the core of why I do what I do. You know, he spoke in the earlier session yesterday, in the earlier part of the session, about wants and needs. And like, I do grapple with this, is anything ever truly altruistic? But sometimes I really just like being nice for the sake of being nice and for people to feel good about themselves or others, and the feedback is they might smile. So I do get something out of that. Linking to coaching, most people, I would say, get involved in coaching or supporting others because they have someone who's involved and they want to see them smile and enjoy the experience, or they didn't have a nice experience and they want to maybe fix that in this new environment, or they want to help out and carry a bowl bag, or be an available person, or etc. etc. But in the wants and needs last night, he wasn't talking about the arm around the shoulder all the time. He was talking about us not getting off track to think that care can be about understanding the needs of the person and getting to that next level. So can it be in high performance? Absolutely. And that particular question hooked me, I guess, because it's very relevant to how I try to plan for next season at West Ham, how I try to infiltrate the spaces and say, can we talk about care without people getting all worried that we're getting too soft, which I do melt the rabbit ears around, and the enabling part. So if we send out job descriptions, we sent out a job description recently, or I helped write some of it. And at the start, I was like, we want to do part of the team. We want to help you grow, or we want to, all that's really important. So I do think, and off sport, yeah, it's how I am, most of the time, probably to my own detriment sometimes, but care is really, really important to me.
I do wonder though, as you were saying that, then from a high performance lens, is high performance sport ready to care, or is it still, it's about ego, it's about outcome, and less about looking after people, whether that people is athletes, players, coaches, support staff, the wider people around, etc., whether the dominance of those other factors trump care?
Yeah, the dominance, what a really good word. Because I was going to say there, is it how we frame care that becomes the problem, that actually can they exist? Maybe you need to dial up and dial down at different times, but can the ego still exist whilst the care is there? Can this idea of a nurturing act, the coach-athlete relationship, can all of that encompass elements of care without dominating, without it being overwhelmed? Yeah, I wonder. We know that high performance has consistency written all over it, don't we? Like, it's those, some of the basics elevated to the next level, or added a broader scope of things at a consistent level or a consistent rate. So do we just wrap the care around the stuff that we know is operating on a daily basis in some professional space, or like even care around your version of care and my version of care? Now, there'll be a lot of overlaps, but there'll be different experiences that you've had and I've had, that we've seen or witnessed care, or we haven't witnessed it, and we might have a way that different things could have been handled to support the wants and needs.
I've got a somewhat big question for you.
Go on. Shock. Here we go. Cue 16-minute ramble. I will not do that again.
At least I've warned you. So if someone's listening to this and thinks, I'd really like to emphasize care for each other, for others, for ourselves within our coaching environment, and I'm thinking maybe more towards that kind of time performance end, when people get a bit prickly about stuff, what advice would you give to somebody about how they introduce this as being important? Because I think we can talk about it, somebody can listen and go, like, I get it, it's really important. But if they then go back to their environment, it tends to possibly be one of three things that happens. Either they try it and they give up because it's impossible to get through and they just get beaten down with it. They become a lone wolf, or they might get a breakthrough, but none of which are probably ideal. The breakthrough bit is the closest, but then how does that look as you move forward? But what advice would you give somebody that's thinking, right, this is really important, but I know that the environment that I work within may be, for example, male dominated, full of age 20s and 30s coaches trying to climb over each other for the next higher up important rung in the perceived ladder of the coaching world, stabbing each other in the back to do it. I mean, I could name names here, but I won't. But I've seen it a lot, where it's about me, look at me, peacocking, look how good I am type stuff, where care is a long way from that agenda for them. What advice would you give to somebody who wanted to think about trying to revolutionize how they do something?
Revolutionize, what a good word. I mean, I do not have the answer to this revolutionary revolutionizing question, but I can throw some examples. So what about if all of the three that you've just listed could exist or could be part of the process? I thought Lone Wolf is a really good gin as well, by the way, and we're not getting sponsored, but it's a really good gin. Yeah, just
writing that down.
It's lemon. Yeah, it's a really good one. So back on track. I gave myself 30 seconds there. Words that came to mind as you were speaking there. One was mattering. You matter, mattering, and this idea that you're totally, completely and utterly right. And I experienced it this year when I came into West Ham, naively. Cute story, was that I wanted to make people feel like they mattered, but the way I went about it was kind of my approach, that I might be the glue. I might go in and say, hey, listen, coming from a different world into football, thanks for letting me in the door. How can I share what I know, but meet you where you're at? And so I was a couple of months in, and I gave myself a little bit of a cold shower to wake up and say, hang on, how you know, you don't have to be the glue. That's ego. Let's go to the individuals and see what kind of Pink Panther effect you can have by understanding what matters to them. So then they feel like they matter. And that's a real obvious one. But if you look at all the different ways that you can share this love for care and coaching, or this word, or this new way of operating, there could be podcasts, there could be research, there could be your own understanding of the research translated into the language of that environment. There could be, you know, a multitude of different ways. It could be conversations. I should have started with that. So it's understanding where the people are at. And then once you see an in with certain people, that topic can come down the road. But you can start it by being the person who speaks about it more often. So examples, we had some ways of operating, some language that I won't repeat here that we used that was very normal in the environment. And then I came in and I was like, not using that, not going there. And then it would be like, Jen doesn't like this word, but, and I'm like, no, we can use many other words. Here's some alternatives. So whilst we have care as a you know, topic that we're talking about, maybe we could look at other words, and maybe we could relate them to the environment. Maybe we could do it in the actions that we show, and not saying that we want it to be reciprocated, but there will be a point where somebody feels like they matter to you, and there's that bigger sense of belonging as well. So yeah, I think it's just looking at what impact and outcome you want to have. And if you really want as a head coach to have it in your environment, and there's a really great relationship, then I'd assume that there's lots of opportunities to connect as a group. And then if you're having those connections, then just put it on the agenda. But if it's not, if it's the other space where things are a bit, maybe not, I won't say disjointed, but things just, there's lots of peacocks. Usually underneath the peacock, there's somebody who's lacking a bit of confidence in certain areas, is peacocking for a reason. It's not really a safe space, or that's a learned behavior. So there's another avenue, another way to get at that, I think.
Nice. So I was busy scribbling as you were talking, sharing your wisdom. So I've summarized that into 6. Another Jen's top
well,
6.
let me nick this time, because that's really succinct that you've been able to nail that. And I need that. That's a good partnership. I waffle and you go, I'll just collect all these bits for her and put them in nice sentences.
So this is what I collected from that then. So 1, meet people where they're at. 2, individuals, try and understand the people you're working with, what matters to them. There's certainly starting points. Number 3 was the use of a variety of methods, such as translating academic research for people if that might be daunting for some in terms of reading things, etc. So how can you help with that kind of variety of methods? 4, I really liked this one, conversations. But not only did you talk about something that you didn't like or you didn't think was appropriate, which is why quite often where people would stop. What you then did, which I really loved, was, I want to hear some alternatives that we could use that can still describe this in a way that is totally appropriate without the inappropriateness. So words, but with some alternatives. Number 5 was speak more often about it. And and number 6 was connect as a group. And I think if people start with those 6 different things about how to make a more caring place for other humans, I still think you can get some really good high performance outcomes. I would possibly go as far as arguing you can get some better high performance outcomes because you're broadening what success looks like. Because all of a sudden you're making a difference to other people. But I think sometimes this can happen from the top. So the vision of the Arsenal Football Club Academy is to be the best youth care system in the world. Wow. So what does that then look like? But I would guess all of everything that you've just talked about would come flooding through if that's genuinely what they're trying to achieve. Wow,
I love that. Thanks for making me sound like I know what I'm talking about. They're a good sum of points. You did really well there. So here's something that I'd like to finish up on, because as usual, we had a topic, and I am going to integrate this topic as a little teaser for next episode. Can you tell us a little story about a time when either you as an athlete or in the coaching role or in your current head of coaching role or down in director of football role, in the many, many things you do now that I'm listing them out, where care has been instrumental?
I think it's what we do. As you said, it's just that it's that mode of operating. So last night, we're in this strange period in between seasons for us at the football club at the moment, where relatively new manager, changing team, changing people, and some quite big characters in our group have left. And I'm not part of those discussions. It's the manager's gig, right? He picks the team and he picks the squad, etc. And it's interesting the ones that are leaving. But even yesterday, so one of the lads put on his Twitter, "Thanks for the time at the club, blah, blah, blah." And he's going up a level, which is great. Good luck to him. And I just sent him a message just to say, look, you know, you're a cool lad. I've never met anybody that can do this, this, and this like the way that you can. And I know that you'll absolutely smash it at the next level. And if you need anything, you know where I am. I mean, I got a load of really nice messages back from him. That wasn't the reason I did it, but just saying thank you to somebody, and you know, I'm here if you need it, can be what some people need. Because the biggest thing is, you know, that they know that they're cared about, and sometimes that's all it can take. And one of his messages back was, I didn't really understand it, but I took it as a good thing, was he said, it's very rare that you meet someone in football as genuine as you. And hopefully that's just because I've been me, you know, like I can't be anybody else. But I think just showing that you care and not seeing it as a weakness, you know, like, oh, I can't show that vulnerability. Why wouldn't you?
That's a great story. And that simplistic thank you in there in the middle of it. Yeah. That takes a couple of minutes or a little while to think about and frame it and then send it. And, you know, bosh, it could be a life of somebody going, yeah, that really nice guy that I had 10 years ago or engaged with 5 years ago in the club, really nice guy, I'll connect with him, you know.
I guarantee I'll see him in 10, 15 years and he'll be a manager because he's that kind of character.
Oh, wow.
And then hopefully you can pass some of this on to other people, right?
Yeah, cool. I love that. So if you didn't get the hook on what I was getting at there, storytelling. So next week we are going to discuss a wonderful quote.
We might.
we might not. Join us next week. That's the end of the episode for this week. We are going to hopefully look at storytelling because I do love it, and I tell quite a few, as to the detriment to my wife, and it gets legs as it goes, as you will have heard over the last few seasons. at Coach Convo. That's where you can find us on Twitter, coachconversation@gmail.com, if you want to send us a longer blurb or some thoughts on the last couple of episodes, or this episode, with some meaty areas to discuss around care and your environment. We'll see you next week, and thank you for joining us. Bye.
Bye.